Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Jnana Moolam Guru Murti, Puja Moola Guru Padam, Mantra Moolam Guru Vakyam, Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa. Prostrations to the lotus feet of Guru Maharaj, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Prostration to the lotus feet of Ma Sharda Devi, and prostrations to the lotus feet of Swami Vivekananda. I am very happy to note that Ramakrishna Mutt is celebrating the 125th year of triumphant return of Swamiji from the West. It is Tamil Nadu which had first recognized the national building potential and world influencing potential of Swamiji and had funded his journey to the West. It was therefore appropriate for Swamiji to return to India through Colombo and Tamil Nadu. The 125th year celebration covers various talks of Swamiji during his return back to India, which are covered in the detail in the talks from Colombo to Almora. I am very happy to note that the Ramakrishna Mutt is celebrating this 125th year by inviting people to talk about how they have been inspired by Swamiji, by involving the youth to talk about how they have been influenced by Swamiji or why they like Swamiji. And also the use of technology is a very novel idea. Swamiji was very keen that his ideas should be spread and his ideas should be realized. Sister Gargi had said that those who have been touched by the life of Swamiji should in turn inspire and touch the lives of others. Therefore, this way of celebrating the 125th return is very commendable. I thank Swamiji for giving me an opportunity to express a few ideas on Swami Vivekananda. I was happy to participate in the function at Kumbakonam Town Hall where the portrait of Swamiji was unveiled on February 5th. It was February 5th that Swamiji had spoken in the town hall, Kumbakonam, where he addressed the people the famous slogan, "Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached." I came under the influence of Swami Vivekananda when I was young through the publications of the Ramakrishna Mutt. Whenever I used to travel in a train, I used to pick one or two of these books from the bookstall because these were cheap. Not that I was interested in the subject, but when I read it, I found it very, very inspiring, very, very interesting. And at that time, I couldn't understand much of Vedanta or other things, but I was greatly influenced by his talks on strength, boldness, fearlessness, self-confidence, faith in oneself. He advocated shedding of all weaknesses and shed any form of weaknesses which is either physical or mental or intellectual should be completely shunned. He also spoke on strength and he said that people will understand Gita better playing football or if their biceps were stronger. He wanted muscles of iron, nerves of steel, and he wanted everybody to struggle and not be bothered about obstacles and succeed in spite of obstacles. This idea stood with me for a long time, and in my professional life, it helped me to embark on large projects, trailblazers projects, and I had the courage not only to embark but to successfully complete it in spite of several obstacles. As you know, trailblazers have to always go through fire and there will always be a lot of obstacles. It is later in life when I came to understand little about Vedanta and spiritualism, etc., I was able to appreciate the contributions of Vivekananda to spirituality, to Hinduism, to social service, and to a whole host of matters. Vivekananda was a multifaceted personality, a patriot, a sage, a saint, an orator, an organizational builder, a motivator, an independent thinker, and so many roles he had to play. It is very difficult to cover Swami Vivekananda in such a short time. And Swami Vivekananda achieved so many milestones, so many great heights in each of these spheres. It is really a wonder that he could achieve so much in a short span of less than 40 years. We will first examine what was Swami Vivekananda himself inspired by. If we analyze, Swami Vivekananda was primarily inspired by three factors. First is Vedanta. He studied Vedanta and the Upanishads and all scriptures very thoroughly and was a great scholar. And he realized what a great treasure it was, what a great mine of strength it was. And he realized that this treasure should be scattered all over the world, all over the country, among the people, so that they get benefited by this Vedas and Upanishads. It had to be taken out from the libraries, from the monasteries, from the ashrams, and scattered all over the country. People should hear it, listen to it, meditate, ruminate over it, and also meditate on it. This was Swamiji's idea. The second great inspiration was Ramakrishna Paramahamsa himself, because he found in Ramakrishna Paramahamsa a living Vedantin, and therefore he learnt at his feet so many great things, and he was actually a dynamic aspect of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. The third inspirer for him was India. He traveled the length and breadth of the country. He traveled, met so many people, from Maharajas to the poorest person, a whole range of people all over the country, and he learnt about the country. And he also realized and found the misery, the difficulties, the problems, and he felt so intensely. And he also worked for solutions for these problems. These were the three great inspirations, and he wanted these inspirations to be also spread among all the people and others also to be inspired by these inspirations. As for me, I had already told you I was already inspired by his message of strength, but what I found very great was the power in his talk. Each word had so much power behind it, had so much magnetism in it. It attracted it to you, and the power was so great that it literally shook you. He says when he talks of the words of the Upanishads, it falls like a sword blade, it blows like a hammer, it is a firm note of music, it makes you stand on your feet, and all these impacts were felt by me in Swamiji's speeches and Swamiji's writings. The other important thing which I found in Swamiji's speech and writings were that they were power-packed in a capsule form. Such a mine of information packed in so little words. It was very brief but full of clarity. Some of the messages which were such power-packed, small messages have inspired me a lot. One of them is Atmana Moksha, Jagat Itayacha. 4 words, but it contains so much of meaning, a mine of information, a mine, a treasure of knowledge. And this knowledge covers almost all aspects of Swami Vivekananda's teaching, as we will see now. Atmana Moksha is what we will take up. The Atmana Moksha is an inward journey into oneself, where the object is to realize the Atman. And the journey could be through the Panchakoshas, a journey through the Panchakoshas, from the Annamaya Kosha to the Pranamaya Kosha to the Manamaya Kosha to the Vijnanamaya Kosha and to Anandmaya Kosha. A journey to analyze based on the Drik Drishya Viveka, a journey from the object to the subject and to analyze the subject. He emphasized on Atmana Moksha because there are several ways of freedom, several types of freedom. There is an outer freedom, which is political freedom, social freedom. There is inner freedom, which is intellectual freedom, moral freedom, and spiritual freedom. And all these freedoms can be obtained when you obtain the spiritual freedom, that is Atmana Moksha. Our Purusharthas ourselves tell that the four objectives of life are Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Moksha being the final goal. And by achieving this Moksha, you automatically achieve all the different types of freedom. This Moksha also are of different types, like Sadhava Mukti, which is instant freedom, Krama Mukti, which is freedom over stages, Videya Mukti, which is freedom after the body falls, Jivan Mukti, freedom while living, and Sarva Mukti. Swamiji also brought very importantly that the freedom of the Atman is always there. We are always free, and it percolates through the mind and body, and therefore there is an urge for freedom from the smallest worm to a Jivan Mukta. And this urge for freedom is manifested in a greater and greater level as one evolves from a small worm to a Jivan Mukti. Now, what happens is, once you realize this freedom, you realize that the Jiva in you is also the Jiva in all others, and therefore others are not different from you. And therefore, while you serve others, you really serve yourself. This is what we automatically realize when we achieve the Atma Moksha, because the Atma is all-pervading and all-pervasive. Swamiji, in Sarva Mukti, which I just mentioned, is a philosophy propounded by Appaya Dikshita, where he says that even when you reach freedom, you don't reach ultimate freedom. You only reach an unity with Ishvara, whereafter you start doing Ishvara's work. But ultimate freedom will be obtained by you only when you lift the others who are also the self and make them also free. That is, your freedom is linked to the freedom of all others, and you have therefore to work for the freedom of all others. The Swamiji's concept, a philosophy on Mukti, is also different in terms of the schools of thought. You know, we have different school of philosophy, everybody recognizing the Brahman. The Dvaita, where the one and many are considered different. The Vishishta Dvaita, where one is considered the full and many as parts of it. The Advaita, where one is considered true and the many is considered as false, and many are appearances only in the one. Swamiji's philosophy was different, where he said that the one and the many is not false. It is the manifestation of the one. And therefore the one is also true, the many is also true, and one and many are not different. And this philosophy, where he realized the whole world are manifestations of divinity, led to believe that each soul is only a reflection of Ishvara and therefore God, and therefore service to the individual is service to God. And that is how the philosophy of Shiva Jnane Jiva Shiva, Manava Seva Madhava Seva came through. And Swamiji therefore laid a lot of emphasis that service is an important part of spirituality. In fact, he said that service is very important, and he also laid a method of how one should serve. Even for Atmana Moksha, he also devised the method of achieving Atmana Moksha by saying that each soul is potentially divine. The object is to manifest the divinity every moment. How do we manifest the divinity? By controlling internal or external nature. And then how do we control the internal and external nature? By yoga, by Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga or Raja Yoga. Any one of them or more or a combination of all. In this he brought the synthesis of yoga. As we have already said, by saying that all the schools of philosophies are one and the same, he also brought the harmony of the Hindu religion, and he also brought about the harmony of all the religions later by saying that all roads lead to the same God, all are paths to the same God, all are one expressed in different ways, etc. In social service, what he emphasized that one, we should realize that everyone is potentially divine. So everyone is a manifestation of God. Second, he said that we must feel for them, feel for their problems, feel for their miseries from the heart, very, very intensely. The third, he said that we must think and find solutions for the problems based on our cultural heritage. And then fourthly, he said that you must always analyze the motivation for your service, that it is not motivated by greed or popularity, but it is motivated by the knowledge that we are serving God in men, and that way we are progressing in our own path of spirituality. Another aspect of Atmana Moksha and Jagati Sayacha are they are not different. They are both one and the same and are mutually reinforcing. As you progress towards Atmana Moksha, your heart expands because the Atma is infinite. And as you expand, you automatically feel for others. It is like a point where the circumference goes on widening, where from a selfish eye, you expand to think of your family, of your society, later of your state, of your country, and ultimately of the entire universe. So that is the expansion that automatically leads to Jagatitayacha also. And what are the areas in Jagatitayacha where one should work? He listed that you can do the social welfare activity for physically for the body by feeding, etc. For life by medicine and health. For moral freedom by teaching them value and ethics. And intellectual freedom by allowing them to be creative by reasoning. And then spiritual freedom, ultimately, where we lift them to realize the self. So he said this is the order. Therefore, the highest service which one can do is providing spiritual freedom. The next service is education, secular knowledge, which is the intellectual. The third thing is providing health and life. And last is providing physical supports like hunger, clothing, and shelter. I've also been influenced. The other important thing I thought is the important part is Swamiji emphasized the manifestation of divine. And how does one manifest the divine? He said gives a beautiful example of imagine a light. The light is covered by a curtain and there is a small hole, and the light is manifested. And as you remove the curtain or as you increase the hole, what happens is the light is expressed better, the light is manifested better. So too, as the veil of ignorance is removed by the path of spirituality, by the path of morality, etc., by good actions, etc., you will manifest the divinity. And as you do the opposite, you will cover the brilliance. This manifestation also is said it should be every moment, which is also a very, very interesting thing, the every moment. Because normally we meditate for half an hour or 15 minutes or do puja for half an hour and think that we have complied with our divine responsibilities. But Swamiji wanted the manifestation of the divinity every moment. That means every moment has to be made divine. Every moment has to be made spiritual. Every moment is a sadhana towards spirituality. I think this is a great idea, and where therefore even interactions between people, objects and events become a sadhana, becomes a divine interaction. Swamiji was very keen that his ideas should be realized. It should be translated into reality. I would now cover some of the projects where we are trying to translate Swamiji's ideas into reality. Swamiji once mentioned that if these children cannot go to the school should come to children. This single idea motivated the Ekal movement. In remote villages in Jharkhand, there were no schools at all, and children were not able to go to school and were uneducated. This idea of Swamiji inspired in 1989 to set 60 schools in remote villages, which benefited the children with some foundational education, primary school activity. And now this movement has grown to over 1 lakh schools spread all over India, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Assam to Gujarat. And most of the schools are in very remote tribal areas, hill areas, where education is not reached. The ambit of the service has also expanded to cover other areas like health and cleanliness, village development, self-development, where we are providing opportunities of earning by teaching them in organic manure, agricultural activities, providing women with knowledge of tailoring, etc. And also sanskar, where we are trying to inculcate spiritual and religious education, and also inculcating values and ethics and culture to people. The whole objective is empowering tribal education, tribal children through education. In fact, this scheme is now expanding even further by bringing technology into education, where we are teaching computer on buses, which we call Ekan on wheels. We are also providing taps to children in some selected villages where they are able to educate themselves by using modern means of technology. Another important idea of Swamiji was that he recognized that the greatest motivator of our life in India, the foundation, the backbone, the pillar, the common thread which runs through the entire diversity is religion and spiritual life. And he said that if religion and spiritual life is what we have to strengthen so that the entire culture and entire religion, entire life gets strengthened. It is with this objective that we have started an organization called Ekal Harikatha Samiti, where we are training acharyas from remote villages. In Ayodhya, we have set up a center. We are training the acharyas on Tulsidas Ramayana so that they can go and do the Harikatha on Tulsidas Ramayana and therefore spread religion, spirituality, and also value and ethics so that everyone becomes like Rama, a Purushottama. In Brindavan and Nadia, we are training acharyas on Bhagavatam so that they can go and tell Bhagavatam in villages and the teachings of Sri Krishna and therefore strengthen the religious and spiritual life of people and also again inculcate values and ethics and everyone becomes like Sri Krishna. We are also planning to set up a center in South India. We have set up and we would appreciate if everybody can come across and assist us in this movement. The third area where we are trying to implement the ideas is Swamiji had certain views of morality which was very unique. The Western philosophy is that people are moral because of fear of police, fear of society, fear of violating dharma. So people are not free by themselves, but more due to negative aspects. Swamiji was the first person to say that the Atman is pure and therefore everyone is naturally and spontaneously pure, spontaneously good, spontaneously full of values. But this is now covered by ignorance, and this ignorance has to be removed. Then these values and ethics will automatically express itself in the individual. Knowledge is the cure. Now, realizing the importance of value and ethics in Indian life and realizing that value and ethics have substantially declined, corruption is everywhere, morality is on the decline. My Swamiji, Swami Bhumananda Tirtha, had started two organizations, one called Center of Inner Resources Development, and another organization called Foundation for Restoration of National Values. I am proposing to start an FRND center where I have been asked to be the convener, and we hope to build values and ethics in society, in administration, in government, in education, in police, almost in every spectrum of life. These are small ways we are trying to translate the ideas of Swami Vivekananda into reality. Swami Vivekananda once said that if the country had produced so many rishis, it can produce many more. It can produce many more Vivekanandas. I would just like to conclude my talk by a small quotation of Swamiji, which is behind me. I want each of my children to be 100 times greater than I could ever be. Every one of you must be great. Must. That is my word. Swami Vivekananda. So this is the message for all of you. All of you should adopt the ideals and values and inspirations of Swami Vivekananda, inculcate them, and then endeavor to become greater than Swami Vivekananda, many times greater, and become contributors to national building, to the great nation, to society, and to people around. and become great themselves. Thank you.